This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, welcome and adab. You are listening to Bharat FM, a one of its kind, multilingual, eclectic provider of entertainment, information and news to Indian Americans. Headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, Bharat FM airs shows out of Cincinnati, Chicago and Phoenix. We take pleasure in our ability to cater to your bhakti, chusti, sfurti, shakti and masti needs with our audio and visual shows. Check out bharatfm.com for our online program schedule and archives. I'm sure the content will definitely tickle your senses. Tune in via the 24-hour web streaming on bharatfm.com or via the Bharat FM app. More information can be procured at 513-488-5070.
Hello, good evening, namaskar, adab, sat sri akal. Welcome to Storytellers Cafe. A very good morning to all the viewers and listeners from the United States, especially Cincinnati, Chicago, and Phoenix. And a warm good evening to all the listeners from India and especially Mumbai, as our guest is from Mumbai. I'm your host, Usha Venkatraman, and it gives me great pleasure to host Storytellers Cafe every Sunday night, bringing you a cornucopia of storytellers, authors, journalists, writers, storytellers, musicians, and dramatists. Well, you've guessed, today my guest is a journalist. We've never had a journalist grace our studios before. Friends, as the pandemic continues its third phase or the second phase this year, I heard a lovely Zen story today morning at a Healing Story Alliance, and I would like to share. It's a very short story. There was a man once who was traveling, and he encountered a tiger. So he fled from the tiger. That's what he would do. So he didn't stay there and he was fleeing and he came to a precipice, right? He was running on a mountain top and he came to the edge of the cliff. And he looked down and right below, he saw another tiger waiting. He picked up a vine which was hanging on the cliffside and clung to it and swung himself over the edge. Now the tiger above was sniffing at him, and trembling, the man looked down below and he saw another tiger snarling with its teeth and just waiting to gobble him up when he fell down. At that time, his glance fell on two mice, a black one and a white one, that were nibbling away at the vine. Now the man knew that it was just a short time before the vine would give away and he would plunge down to the waiting tiger. He knew that death was certain. At that time, suddenly, the man looked up and at the side of the cliff, he saw a luscious strawberry near him. Grasping the vine with one hand, he plucked the strawberry with the other and put it in his mouth, and he said how sweet it tasted. So the story is about the strawberry moments in our life. So today, as the pandemic is unabated, let's think of those strawberry moments in our life and listen to stories on Storytellers Cafe. That's what we aim to do. Just enjoy the strawberry moments on Storytellers Cafe. So without further ado, I introduce my guest, Gitanjali Chandrasekharan. Gitanjali is a former journalist with nearly 18 years of experience, having started as an intern at The Hindu in New Delhi. She has worked with papers such as The Asian Age, Mumbai Mirror, Yuva, and her last stint was as the editor of Sunday Midday, the weekend edition of the Mumbai-based tabloid Midday. Now, Geeta is still, I think today must be her last day of her job at Sunday Midday. In 2020, Gitanjali, that is in the pandemic last year, launched Talermade, Talermade, a platform where she creates customized fiction for clients. That's interesting. At TaylorMade, you can create a book for your loved one and tell them a story that is unique to them. An engaging conversation with a journalist turned storyteller. That's what we have in store for you today. Let me bring Gitanjali, and please note her Instagram handle is gitanjali.chandrasekharan and at TaylorMade with underscore, and her Twitter handle is C Gitanjali. Well, without further ado, let me get our guest Gitanjali on to the studios. Welcome, Gitu. Pleasure to have
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you so much.
Well,
How are you?
Gitanjali is also my cousin by relation. She's my first cousin and a wonderful human being, and she's doing something very, very interesting with me as well, with my first book, but we'll talk about it later. So, Gitanjali, welcome to Storytellers Cafe. As you know,
Thank you.
Storytellers Cafe brings in varied storytellers from different walks of life, and we get to
Right.
hear their story. So,
Okay.
what's your story? What's your narrative?
Okay. My narrative. That's a tough one. But essentially, let's say if we start talking about journalism, um, I knew when I was, I think, in class 7 that I wanted to be a journalist. I think you know how teachers ask you what you want to be when you grow up, and I made a very quick calculation which said that I'm interested in a lot of things. Uh, and I'm sure even when I grow up, I will be interested in all kinds of areas of life, and whether it's sports, whether it's science, whether it's the galaxies. I mean, I was in class 7, and I enjoy writing, and therefore I want a career that helps me explore all these interests. And I don't know how I knew it, but I knew it that journalism would be that career. And 18 years down the line, it has not disappointed me. So yeah, it's my narrative essentially is that.
Thank you, Geeta. As you know, a storyteller's tool are the words. You know, they're very powerful tools. A
Yes.
storyteller needs to use words. And I know journalism or for a writer, words are a powerful tool. So,
Yes.
did you realize at a young age? Because I know that you wrote stories when you were very young.
And
Your father has shared your stories with me. So, I know
yeah.
that, if I'm not mistaken, it was set in Aurangabad, Ajanta Ellora. I don't know whether you remember, or maybe my memory is not what it was.
Not, yeah, not that I remember, but
Okay.
we don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah. So you discovered this power that you had within you at a very young age.
I did. I mean, as when you're young, you don't know why you're doing what you're doing. You do it because it expresses a part of you. And at that time, I would read a lot of Enid Blytons, and me and my friends had a group where we called ourselves the Fabulous Four, and we would meet at a quadrangle in the colony and have our own games, etc. And we translated. I think I translated some of those experiences into books. I would write poetry. I don't know how good they were, but I would write it, and it just became a way of expressing myself. I think I understood the craft and the skill of writing much later, when when I went to college and you were competing with other people who were also trying to express themselves in the written word, and of course during work and in office, etc. And when your bosses sort of channel your talent into something better. So yes, I learned the skill much later, but I guess the medium of expression was chosen or chose me, I don't know, was chosen early on in childhood.
Yes. Geeta, I remember you coming to Bombay as a young teenager, and after your graduation, you enrolled at
Yes.
Xavier's Institute of. So, could you just tell us, maybe in brief, uh, your story about entering journalism? Was it a struggle or is it easy out of a journalism school?
So this was in 2002. In 2002 I graduated, and in 2003 I completed my course at Xavier's Institute of Communications. At that time, Xavier's XIC did not give us placements. So it was perhaps one of the few colleges of its time that did not promise you placements. So you had to go out and get a job on your own. Therefore, it was not the easiest way of finding a job. I remember that I was in Bombay at that time. My family was still in Delhi, and I think after a couple of trials at a few places, I think I interned at the afternoon DC. um, I didn't find a job, so I went back to Delhi, and also I think I didn't want to stay in Bombay at that point of time, and I moved back. And even then, I didn't find a job till much later. While I did intern at the Hindu, I didn't get a job, a paying job. Uh, you did what everybody did at that time. We didn't have LinkedIn, we didn't have Naukri.com. We would make cold calls to offices. We dropped in our resumes physically, and I mean, of course, at that point of time, you're also scared. You're young. You've hinged your entire future on this one decision, which is not a very popular career. Even now, you'll have the percentage of people wanting to become journalists would be fewer right now. And one day, I just made a follow-up call to my then would-be boss at the Asian Age, and I guess I was in luck. Someone must have just quit, and she said, "Come, we have place for you. Come, in a week's time, or come the next day." So I joined. So then it just after that everything was fairly smooth.
Good. Geeta, can you, before we move on to talking about Talermade, your latest venture, and I believe it's a successful one at that, can you share some interesting incident, anecdote in the span of 17 years, something uh, interesting? Because I know you've been on the beat, you have driven a motorcycle, you experimented with machines, and you were interested in heritage homes in Mumbai. Something that
Yeah.
you would like to share with us.
Uh, so you spoke about heritage homes in Mumbai. This is essentially you're referring to this blog that I ran. It's sort of dormant right now, called Bombay Architecture, and so what Bombay Architecture essentially is that I would go to these old homes in Bombay and speak to the residents and the owners and ask them to share the story about the house. So this involved a lot of legwork, and again, cold calls, because you will be going to someone's house and introducing yourself, and you don't know who lives there. So my favorite story essentially is, there is this house near Shivaji Park, through Cottage, and I spotted it from outside, and it's a little it was a little lonely at that point of time in the day. There wasn't much traffic. Outside the house, also there was a single car lined up, and I couldn't see anybody around. Because the car was there, and I guess the car hadn't been used for a few days, so it was a little dusty. Uh, I wasn't sure if anyone actually lived in the house. So I go to the house, and the bell is on the side of the house. It is not in the front. It's not on the road where you can be seen. You're a little on the side, and I ring this bell, and as it is, it looks lonely. And suddenly the door opens, and there is no one. Now, this is, if you know me, this is essentially out of my own horror nightmares. When I'm ringing the bell, it opens and there is no one around to open. And I'm wondering, am I entering a haunted house? So then, after 2 seconds, I think when my heart started becoming a little normal, I hear a voice, and I guess domestic help looked at me and said, "What are you here for?" And I said, "Can I meet the owner of the house?" And she said, "Okay, walk up the stairs." So again, I walk up the stairs, and it is a little scary. But then I meet the owner, and he's really sweet, and he says that. Because no one lived on the ground floor. I'm not sure the details on that one, but they essentially devised a mechanism where they could, open the door from the first floor without someone having to come down. So it saves them a lot of effort, which I thought was beautiful. I mean, of course, unless you are like me and you get surprised or scared. But yeah, that remains one of my favorite stories of discoveries of houses in Bombay.
Wonderful. What a spooky tale. I mean, one could embellish it as a storyteller and then go the door creaking open. I know, a nightmare. Definitely a scary story in the making. That was wonderful, Geeta. Anything else? I know you blog as well. Do you still continue to blog?
I haven't. I mean, I guess I've just been busy with work, and well, when I started the blog, it was 2012. I was much younger. I guess I've just become lazier with age. So the blog requires a lot of legwork. It requires you to go to people's houses and make cold calls. Um, I mean, most of the time, 99% of the time, of course, the experiences have been very sweet. And I mean, the people in Bombay are just so welcoming and so trusting. But I think I once did go to a house where the conversation was a little scary. So I think that has discouraged me from going. This was recently, a few years back. So yeah, so I guess I'm still getting over the hesitation of going to someone's house and asking, "Hey, can you let me in?"
I know people aren't that forthcoming. You're lucky that some of them welcomed you
I
into their
am.
house.
I'm very
Yeah.
grateful also.
Yes. Yes. So, Geeta, it brings me to my next question. Of course, we can go back and forth if you want to
Sure.
share some incident about during your journalistic career.
Yeah.
I also know that your hobby is to dive.
Yes.
You're a water baby, so we would definitely like to talk about that. Whether you have any
Okay.
water stories to share, but let me move on to how was Tailor-Made born?
Okay. So, well, as your family, you know, but TaylorMade started with a very simple objective. Last year, my niece and my nephew had their respective babies, and they live in the US. And I wanted to gift them something that was unique to them, and that I could give this to them sitting in Mumbai, and something that would that they couldn't buy for themselves, something that perhaps somebody else couldn't give them, and something that had a very long life. So I was wondering for the longest time what that could be, and then it struck me that maybe I could, rekindle an old love, which was fiction writing, and see if I could create a bedtime story for their children, and that spoke about their parents' childhood stories. So that is how Talermade was born. And then then of course, like when after I created the books, I was wondering if I could perhaps do this on a larger scale. I asked a friend to uh, I asked a friend to sort of volunteer for this experiment, and I wrote the book for her, and then I realized that perhaps because of my journalist training, that I can see a story in other people, and therefore perhaps I can do this on a larger scale. Usha.
Yeah, lovely, Geeta. No, I was just trying to, because I got so lost in your story. So, something out of the mundane, you create a story. I mean, that's wonderful. So, my next question to you is, Geeta, is there what kind of stories does TaylorMade do? Is it only fiction?
So it is based on reality. Mostly it is based on reality. How much fiction does one want depends on the client. So I remember that the first book that was commissioned for TaylorMade was by a friend who wanted to gift a book to her niece about the friend's grandparents. So they'd passed away a while back, and the niece had not met them. So the book that we created has this young girl, Shanvi, go back into time and spend a day with these grandparents and experience them on her own. So it sort of allows her to live a life with them which she wouldn't have otherwise. So that is the level of we can do any level of fiction that the client wants.
This is interesting. Time travel. This
Thank
is
you.
wonderful.
Yeah,
What
that's
a
one of the
lovely,
liberties you can take.
yeah, and what a lovely gifting idea which sustains, which stays
Yeah,
forever, Geeta. What a
yeah, yeah.
beautiful idea that you've come up with. Is there a
Thank you.
story that you would like to share with us, with our viewers?
Yes, there is. There is. I'd like to sort of read out from this book that I've made for a friend. It's called Yara's Unexpected Adventures on the Roof with Amama and Tata. So I'm just reading out a tiny portion. The book was writ- written for this young girl, and her mother, who commissioned the book, essentially wanted her daughter Yara to experience the terrace garden that my friend's mother has essentially set up in her Chennai home. Uh, what we do with the book is that it's sort of a takeoff on the faraway tree a little bit. So Yara goes to the terrace where the plants come alive. In that they talk to her, they guide her on how to take care of them. There are birds who talk to her, birds, bees, etc. So yeah, I'm just reading out now. Come on now, Yara. Tata and Yara followed. Not sure what she had been expecting, Yara looked around and saw tons and tons of pots and plants. It was amazing, but it wasn't magical. The girl looked at her grandmother with eyes that couldn't conceal her disappointment. But where is the magic, Amama? Amama and Tata laughed. Who is this little girl with you, Aruna? Came a tiny voice from Yara's right. She turned to look, but there was no one around. Amama, however, had walked to one of the pots and started talking. This, Katrikai, is my pet Yara. Amama, are you talking to the plants? Yara asked, walking over to the brinjal plant, a little amazed at the big voice coming from such a small creature. Yes, Yara, and they will talk back to me too. Will you introduce yourself? As Yara introduced herself to the brinjal plant, it seemed to her that it was stretching out a branch as if to shake hands. She put forward her hands and shook the brinjal's branch very gently. What a sweet girl she is, Katrikai, the brinjal, said of the young girl. Child, will you get me some water? Amama showed Yara how to water the plants on the terrace. There was a tap to which a pipe was attached. Now, just as all humans don't feel equally thirsty, all plants don't require the same amount of water either. Hold it carefully. Don't turn the tap on full. Now put enough water in the pot to make the soil wet, but don't fill it up with water. Yara did as instructed. She was about to spray some water on the plant when Katrikai saw her and said, No, Kanna, I don't like water all over me. You see, I'm more of a beach person. I like the warm weather. Splashing me with water will leave me cold and shivering. Yara understood, smiled, and thanked Katrikai for telling her how to take care of him.
Amazing, Geeta. Oh, how
Thank you.
nice. Katrikai talking. This is a truly creative, beautiful. So you did this for a client, for somebody.
I did. I did. It's
Wow.
one of my favorite stories.
Oh, this should be published. I mean, this is beautiful. How lovely
Thank
to
you.
have a katrikai plant, and there is so much information vested in this story. I mean, it could be a science lesson, it could be about watering plants, and how to
Yes.
do what technique, and having a
Yes.
roof garden. Beautiful,
Yeah.
lovely, Geeta. I
Thank
love
you.
it. I didn't know this
Thank you.
aspect of you, and thank you for surprising me. Little
Thank
surprises
you.
me nowadays, very little, in
Yeah.
fact. This
Okay.
is wonderful. Geeta, before I go on to more about Tailor-Made, or if you want to, we can finish off Tailor-Made because I'm more interested in other stuff, which is, of
Okay.
course, equally important as Tailor-Made. So just tell me, is Tailor-Made books, is it only for children or is it for adults as well?
No, it is for adults. In fact, one of the books that I did recently was for a client who wanted to gift her friend a book that sort of showed the friend that how the rest, like her social group, essentially saw her as a strong, successful woman who could achieve anything that she wanted, uh, which I thought was nice, was such a sweet gesture. So yeah, it tailor made. And one of the other books that I'm doing is a wedding book, which talks about the love story of the bride and the groom. So at tailor made, the motto essentially is if you have a story, we will do the book for you.
Lovely, wonderful, wonderful,
Thank you.
excellent. So I too have approached Geeta to edit my book, which she's already done, and we are just waiting for an illustrator who's also come on board, but will take a couple of months. And stay tuned, friends. Definitely, I'll unveil it on Storytellers Cafe. Geeta is also doing ghost writing for others, like their biographies, their stories. So I will let her talk to you more on that.
As a journalist, I would you come across so many people and they all have so many stories. and each person's story is you realize that each person has a lovely story to tell. Uh, yes, I mean, so as a journalist, it's the experience in TaylorMade is that I can extract that story from someone. I know the kind of questions to ask the clients. So sometimes people want a book, but they don't know the kind of details that they want in the book. So, I sit with them often and I ask them, what all would you like? What are the sort of expressions that you want in the book? What are the sort of emotions that you want in the book? Um, yeah, and of course, you know, I'm collaborating with some great designers and illustrators. So we also customize the visual aspect of the book for the clients.
That's interesting, Geeta. Really interesting. Would you like to share with our viewers that which book or what book have you most enjoyed working on so far?
Right. Um, I mean, while of course I have enjoyed working on all the tailor-made books, and that's not an exaggeration because all the stories are so much more fun to tell. One of the books that touched me the most while making was this book that was commissioned for a family that had lost their parents last year. And of course, well, we spoke to the family and we sort of understood what are the memories that they wanted in the book. And one realizes that often it's so much of our memories are linked to the food that we ate with the parents or with, that the parents cooked for us. There would be these masalas that the mother would make, the father would make dosas and chas for the kids. And so yeah, we brought in these memories for the family, and it was touching because I mean I've lost my parents, and I understand what that emotion is to be able to go back in time and connect with them. So the book essentially is not placed in any particular time, but it has a master chef esque cooking contest where the entire family engages in cooking these, trying to recreate these masalas and chas, etc. And I mean, while making it, I really wish that I could have done it for myself. But yeah, it was one of the most touching moments because you realize that you've given the family something so valuable, something so warm. And I guess I think through TaylorMade, I'm just very grateful that I have the skill or and the talent to do something like this.
Yes, and so palpable, something about cooking, right?
Yes,
Uh,
yes,
Geeta, have you dabbled in fiction before?
I have as a child, as my Appa would share those stories with you. So I've written as a child. I would write these novels in the house, mystery novels, etc. Of course, I only have one story left, one book left. I think with a couple of friends, I made one several years ago for a friend. I mean, when we must have been in class 8 or 9, I remember having made a book similarly for a friend who uh, I think was celebrating her birthday while she had chicken pox. So she was quarantined at home, essentially. Yeah. But I even off and on I write on my blog, but they are personal fiction. Yeah.
Yes, with personal stories doing the rounds today and so popular in name it Moth Theatre, and of course we also have the spoken word in Mumbai. We had two festivals back to back. For the past 2 years, we haven't had that festival. Of course, we know the obvious. This is great. So, Geeta, can you share with us the process That would be my last question. Process of making a book work.
Right. So, how a tailor-made book would work is the client approaches me for saying that they want a book written. Now, we would ask them who do they want it written for, what are the sort of emotions that they want in the book, what also importantly, what do they want the person they're gifting the book to feel when they're reading the book,
Hmm.
which is an important aspect. And then of course we sit with them for getting the stories out. Often, I sit with the client quite a few times. I've given them questionnaires. Which is where the journalism experience comes in. I've given them questionnaires saying these are the kind of details that we want. Perhaps this is the area in which you want to look for a memory, and we finalize the story. The client at all times knows where the story is headed, because it's a gift. It has to be something they are happy giving with also. And then we make the book with the, as I said, with the design team and with the illustrators on board. We customize the illustrations for them. And when the client is finally happy with the final product, we ship it off with a lot of love, and hopefully the person who's been gifted the book enjoys it as much as we did.
I'm sure. I'm sure. That goes without saying, because it's such a labor of love. I can see the
It is.
passion coming out of you as you're talking about it and describing, and I personally experienced that. Geeta, what's been burning on my mind is your other, sports. I know you're a sports enthusiast, and
Yes.
can you tell our viewers about diving? And you've gone to some exotic places, if I remember right, to New Zealand to do an adventure sport series for your newspaper, as well as to
Right.
Singapore. But the New Zealand one, where you've done some adventure sport, could you talk about that?
Right. Um, so what I did in New Zealand, I mean, as I went on an official trip from the newspaper Sunday midday, uh, I so they have when they get guests over on their New Zealand tourism trips, they have an itinerary that's packed, and obviously you're in New Zealand. They want you to experience skydiving. Uh, and I don't like heights. I can get a little scared looking down from the ninth floor or from down from an escalator at the PVR. So this was not really my idea of something that I wanted to do. However, maybe this is it's a journalist thing that if I have to do it for my paper, I will do it. I'll try and go for it. So I think I resisted it, but somehow my hosts convinced me to give it a shot. And of course, New Zealand is known for its safety. So you get to have that experience. It would be best to have it in New Zealand. So yeah, I got strapped on, and they took me in the plane, and I was really just hoping that all the straps were tight and fastened. Uh, and my the it's obviously a tandem dive, and the instructor is standing on the holding me in the airplane, and then we jump, and you're in the clouds and you're jumping and you can't see down most of the time. Now, to my discredit, I had my eyes shut because I couldn't fathom looking down from such a height. And here the instructor is trying to calm me, soothe me, tell me what lake is on the right, what hills are on the left, and all I can. And he has this GoPro on one of his hands, and he says, "Smile into the camera," and you're really scared, and you're trying to do that as well. Um, But yeah, it is. And at some point, I think when I started seeing these green fields, I opened my eyes. You're still at a great height, and there were cows on the field. And my greatest fear at that time is we are going to land on one of the cows. You know, obviously it didn't happen, but it was an experience. And maybe, maybe the second or third time I would have kept my eyes open for a little longer. But it's nice to experience something that you're so afraid of and then get over it.
Yes, I think it's liberating when you attempt these death defying feats. It's kind
Yeah,
of, you're laying yourself vulnerable, and at the same time, there is an exhilaration. It's something indescribable. I think you've got to experience it, right?
sure, sure. Yeah.
Uh, I remember that incident because I sent a message to my Reiki group and said, please
Yes,
send
you had.
healing and prayers to my
You had.
cousin.
Because I was that scared. I couldn't imagine that I am going to go for skydiving. So even when I do scuba diving, there is a sense of height. Because you're obviously so many meters above. I mean, even though you are in water, you're so many meters above, say, the floor of the seabed. It's not that, in terms of height, it's not that problematic because it's water, it holds you up. But for me, even jumping off the boat is a problem. I can't do that. So every time after break I go back to scuba diving, it takes me 2 to 3 jumps to sort of get used to that again.
I can imagine. Geeta, I would like you to talk more because the only experience of my underwater escapades have been, a little bit of snorkeling in Australia, the Great Barrier Reef, which I did with, of course, a guide, who had tied us to a rope and she was
Sure.
drawing us in, which was fabulous. But what I did in Lakshadweep way back in 1996, actually, and that was just about a knee deep water trying to snorkel.
Okay.
But I think water, when you're in the seabed, you're in terra firma. So maybe it is not that scary as skydiving versus scuba diving. I don't know. Can you tell us more about scuba diving?
I yeah, I think I guess different people will experience something different depending on their own medium. Uh, you know, I love water, and scuba diving happened because I tried surfing the previous year, and I nearly drowned in the surfing thing because I did not sort of estimate the flow of the water. So I got very scared of entering the water again for surfing. But I had realized by then that I wanted to be in the ocean. And so the only way then I thought, let me try scuba diving, which is simpler. It is still tricky because you're so many meters underwater, and you have all of this equipment on you that you need to learn to use. And the other thing with scuba diving is that uh, it's not just your safety. You are with someone else, you are with another team. Your actions will also sort of, take care of their safety. Or I can't let myself go away from the team, be irresponsible underwater. If I get lost, it's another problem. How are they going to find me? How am I going to find myself? The other problem with scuba diving is when you go up, you have to be careful that a boat is not going over your head. So yeah, it is. It obviously comes with its own issues, but it is fun because a is you're in the middle of nowhere. That's the best thing about dive experiences is that the city is far away. You're in an island, and in that island, you're in the middle of an ocean where you don't see land mostly, and so there's no other traffic noise. I mean, there will be the boat, the off chance of a boat, but you're underwater, and I don't know how to explain this, but it's magical because the underwater scene is so different from anything that you see above land. The fish are so colorful. Now, of course, I don't eat fish, but I have been around with other people who eat fish, and when I see the fish on their plate, and I'm sorry, I'm equating the fish that I see in the ocean to fish on the plate, but you don't see the colors, you don't see how vibrant they are. You know they move and they have their own behaviors. There is this octopus that will come that will sort of assess who you are, how much of itself does it want to show to you. um, in Maldives we went and saw shark, quite a few of them, uh, and you think that shark are scary, and they are. You don't mess, just like you won't mess around with a tiger in the jungle. You don't mess around with a shark, but that doesn't mean that you can't be safe around them. You have to maintain certain protocol, be with your guide, but it's still scary. I mean, they have their behaviors. They will circle you. They will be, you have to ensure that you're not too close to them. They'll come and eat their feet, and they go. But every creature underwater has its own behavior, and also, even, I mean, in a sense, just like humans and cultures change every few kilometers on land, different fish, just because it's in one ocean, in one area, doesn't mean you're going to see the same fish everywhere. The density of a certain kind of fish, the density of a certain kind of coral changes, and it's just so peaceful. And you have to be, the other thing with scuba diving is that it's so much about breath control, that you have to be at peace. The more at peace that you are, the more you will enjoy your experience. So, as you're learning, your instructor will tell you to not flap too much, to not exert yourself too much. And these are also very important life lessons. Um, but yeah, it's so refreshing, the experience. And also all the people that you meet there, they're also, because they're there to see nature, because they're there to experience something so simple in life, just underwater. You're connected by a very pure experience. It's not about pulling someone down. You can't. Your safety depends on, the safety of the entire team. So everyone has a positive bond, which is what I like, and it's also what I experience with my running group. That everyone is positive. You want to see somebody else do better, because you realize that you just want to. It's not just about your performance, but it's also just a positive feeling that someone is doing better in life.
Yes, Geeta, I know it's all about kinship, and there is a kind of
Yes.
kinship that you develop with your fellow enthusiasts. Uh,
Yes.
Wonderful, beautiful. I can see again the passion for water coming through. Beautiful. Geeta, as we come to the end of our session, though much, I'm sure we would love to hear more and more because it's so interesting. See, you have switched your career.
Yes.
Um, you have quit your job as a journalist, as the editor of Sunday Midday, and taken to Talermade. Is that a risk, or is that something that you did it with complete planning in your mind? And or sometimes I think life, since you're into adventure sports, you just plunge into something and see where the tide takes you.
I think I think maybe especially with adventure sports, is that you'd be stupid to take a risk without thinking a few things out, without figuring your safety, without ensuring that you have, whether it's diving, whether it's rock climbing, you need to ensure you're tied to some ropes. So yes, it is a risk. I mean, from a time where someone else is paying me to work through the day to a time where every day I earn my keep, essentially, it is a risk. So the question would be, why take it? uh, I guess you come to a point where I think tailor-made became something that I really wanted to pursue. And I had done journalism for a really long time. I am not, it's difficult to say. I've learned that it's important to never say never. So, so I'm not a journalist today. I may be one in a few days, or maybe because of tailor-made, in a sense, I will always be a journalist. I don't know how you describe that. Uh, but I mean, if this would be the time to take a risk, I am fairly I have, in a sense, I'm lucky that I have only myself to take care of. It's a luxury and it's a privilege that I enjoy, and I wanted to do this. And the more people that I spoke to believed also along with me that this was an idea that had potential and that had a lot more potential to do, to straddle tailor-made along with the day job would have been unfair to the day job also. Um, so I'm lucky, I guess. And I as I said, I was very lucky to be a journalist, to find something that kept me engaged for 18 years of my life, and more if you count the number of years that I spent wanting to be a journalist. And then you want to know what else you can do beyond a career that you've decided, and then something as beautiful as this comes to you, and I would have been silly not to pursue it. Yeah.
I
I
couldn't
mean,
agree with
yeah,
you more. Yes. I think tailor made was tailor made for you, Geeta. And
yeah.
I, on behalf of Storytellers Cafe, wish you all the best. And
Thank
I'm
you.
sure you will go on to reach great heights in this new venture of yours.
Thank you.
And definitely it will sustain because you're creating stories, you're creating something, a memory for others. And I think our life is memories, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't know what we would do without memories. So I
Yes.
think that's beautiful. It's been a great pleasure hosting you on Storytellers Cafe.
Thank you
And
for
is there
having
any
me.
parting shot that you would like to say before we close the session?
Uh, no, but if you have a story, reach out. I will write it for you.
Yes, like I said, friends, Geeta can be definitely reached at her Insta handle, Twitter, as well as Facebook, which is
Right.
there in her bio. Do reach out to her, and if you want to create a memory, an everlasting memory, then TaylorMade is the place for you. Head towards TaylorMade. Yes, thank you, Geeta, so much. It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure. And I want to tell the viewers that Storytellers Cafe is on the OTT platform. We have launched Bharat TV. Bharat FM has launched Bharat TV. And one of the few episodes or segments is Storytellers Cafe. And we are now on to our season 2. So some of our best episodes, which of course the jury decides, is on the OTT platform. To me, all the episodes are wonderful because each one has a different story to tell. But as per the audio video delivery, I think, which the team will decide on. But then to tell you that it is on the OTT platform and you can always go and look it up on YouTube as well as on the Facebook of Bharat FM. Thank you, Geeta. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I have the job to play the Bharat FM ad now.
Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, welcome and adab. You are listening to Bharat FM, a one-of-its-kind, multilingual, eclectic provider of entertainment, information and news to Indian Americans. Headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, Bharat FM airs shows out of Cincinnati, Chicago and Phoenix. We take pleasure in our ability to cater to your bhakti, chusti, sfurti, shakti and masti needs with our audio and visual shows. Check out bharatfm.com for our online program schedule and archives. I'm sure the content will definitely tickle your senses. Tune in via the 24-hour web streaming on bharatfm.com or via the Bharat FM app. More information can be procured at 513-488-5070.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.